back to World Crisis Radio. So that's the Petraeus for president as the neocon figurehead. Petraeus Romney, Petraeus Mitch Daniels also possible. Now, let's look at the Afghanistan policy. There were these large-scale Afghanistan hearings. That's where Petraeus got himself into the public eye this week. There's a large revolt brewing in Congress as well as in these NATO countries against the bankruptcy of the Obama Afghanistan policy. Notice we're now 1 year away from two events, and these two events go together. Obama says he wants to start the withdrawal from Afghanistan in July 2011, and by some strange combination, some strange coincidence, that's also when you have the Iowa straw poll that kicks off the primary election campaigns. That'll be in the second half of 2011, and then by the beginning of 2012, you've already got Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and the rest. So that's ultimately what Obama has in mind. Now, the neocons want to stay. The Pentagon wants to stay. Congress wants out. You can see in the hearings. Pentagon wants endless war. Interesting is the moment where Senator Levin turned to Petraeus and said, do you endorse, as a professional military judge of the situation, do you endorse the Obama plan of starting the pullout in July of 2011? Long silence from Petraeus, hemming and hawing. Qualified, yes, Senator, qualified, grudging, qualified. You've always got to be very careful with timetables. So what Petraeus is doing is keeping open the option of clashing with Obama. Suppose we get a year down the road, Obama says, time to begin the pullout. Petraeus says, no, you're an appeaser, you're a weakling, you're a wimp, you want to cut and run. I'm resigning and I'm going to take my case to the voters. Great way to start a presidential campaign. The other thing, of course, is that he fainted. Why did he faint? Now, two schools of thought. One is insiders like this, when you go before the Congress and you're going to have to testify for several hours, they always tell you, don't drink any water, especially because if you want to be Napoleonic, it will not do to ask for a bathroom break. This is going to undercut your image. So you don't drink anything so you can stay there for a long time. The other possibility is that, remember, Julius Caesar had epilepsy. Maybe this is some example that the new Caesar, the new Napoleon, might also have this in mind. So that's Petraeus. Now, Kucinich criticizes the Afghanistan war policy. The crying need at this point is for somebody, not Kucinich, because he's too discredited, I'm afraid. We need somebody to announce a primary challenge to Obama. My God, we've got the oil spill. We've got Afghanistan. We've got practically 20% unemployment. We've got union busting going on. But this is all worse than Carter. Carter had no wars. There was practically nobody killed under Carter until 1980 and Desert One. But other than that, Carter steered clear of foreign wars, whereas Obama's up to his neck in two of them and counting. So we need a primary challenger to Obama. And again, forget about whether you're a Democrat, Republican, whatever you are. This is just a structural fact. Is you're going to put pressure on Obama, embarrass him, bend him out of shape by having a primary challenge to Obama. So somebody needs to come forward to raise the idea of the anti-war position, the anti-Wall Street position, the anti-Federal Reserve position from a left perspective, a New Deal perspective. Because the person who tamed the Federal Reserve the most in the century that it's been in existence was Franklin D. Roosevelt. This was a de facto nationalization where Franklin D. Roosevelt would call Mariner Eccles or whoever it was at the Federal Reserve and say, here's what you're going to do this week. That was de facto nationalization. That's what you need. So that's the domestic political situation. Just a note on the politics of the oil spill. The Republicans are obviously trapped in their own Chicago school, Austrian school ideology, and that's where you see Joe Barton, right? He wants to apologize to BP and say that this was a shakedown, it was extortion, and what will come out of this is a slush fund. Now, of course, Barton, this is the typical Republican attitude. Corporations good, government bad, but take over the government and use it to serve the corporations. This is bankrupt. This is what has brought on the Depression. You see Limbaugh. Limbaugh is going with BP good, federal government bad. other Republicans very worried. It was Congressman Boehner who forced Barton to apologize and retract. And you also, when you saw those hearings, you saw all the Republicans from Louisiana and Mississippi and Florida and so forth. They were all on a full anti-BP assault because their jobs depend on it. You don't get anywhere with the pro-corporate, pro-BP line in the Deep South. And that's very interesting because that's the breadbasket of the Republicans. The Republican ideology is in crisis even in their own ideological fortress there in the Deep South. So this is going to cut in a number of ways. Let me just express no confidence in Ken Feinberg, the guy who's administering this fund, the $20 billion fund. Remember, he's the guy who ran the 9/11 fund, and he pioneered something which I think is fundamentally antithetical to U.S. tradition. It's un-American, in other words. He said, if you were a cleaning lady, then you were worth $500,000. But if you were an investment banker, you were worth $20 million, and people should be paid according to this. No. Not in the United States, not in the equal protection of the laws. You couldn't do that. You'd never get up the beach at Normandy if people had different values. They've got to be all the same, equal for all. So if he brings that oligarchical way of thinking, that some people are worth more than others, oligarchs are worth more than the small people, that is bad news. That's Ken Feinberg. The other thing is, if there are hotels down there that are hurting, watch out for the Pritzker interests, because remember, the Pritzkers, as you can read in Obama, the unauthorized biography, the Pritzkers are some of the financial angels who put Obama in the White House. Now, switching to foreign policy on another front, we've had this large-scale upheaval in Kyrgyzia, and I would simply point to the following. We know the background of this. These are the 5 former Central Asian republics of the Soviet Union. The U.S. has a base in Kyrgyzia. The Russians do too. In nearby Uzbekistan, the U.S. has been kicked out of the air base there. So the one in Kyrgyzstan, is absolutely critical to retain. Now, we know the U.S. had been supporting the dictator, the tyrant Bakiev, who was very hospitable to this Manas air base, but he was driven out then by an upheaval which was fomented by Russia through a television campaign against the dictator Bakiev. So Bakiev was driven out. He then had recourse, fled to the southern part of Kyrgyzia. Now, southern Kyrgyzia is different from northern. It's a very poor country. Northern Kyrgyzia, pro-Russian, Russified, basically more modernized. South Kyrgyzia, looking into the Muslim world, lots of Islamic fundamentalists running around, and we'll get to the implications in just a minute.